What if everything we've been taught about human exploration is wrong? Picture this: you're hiking through a remote mountain range, and your boot scrapes against what looks like just another rock. But when you kneel down and brush away the dirt, you find something impossible: intricate maps carved into the stone, depicting coastlines and continents with startling accuracy. Maps that shouldn't exist, maps that predate the explorers we credit with discovering these lands by centuries. This isn't fiction. Scattered across the globe, there are 28 of these enigmatic artifacts, etched into cliffs, boulders, and cave walls, each one a silent challenge to the history books. Who made them? How did they know so much about the world long before the age of sail? And why have their stories been erased? These aren't just random scratches or primitive doodles. The precision of these carvings suggests knowledge that defies the timelines we've accepted. Some show lands separated by vast oceans, yet the details are eerily correct: mountain ranges, river deltas, even trade routes that wouldn't be discovered until hundreds of years later. It's as if someone or some civilization had a bird's-eye view of the planet long before such a thing was possible. The implications are staggering. Could there have been an advanced network of ancient explorers, their achievements lost to time? Or did a single, forgotten culture possess secrets we're only now uncovering? This is more than a puzzle for historians. It's a window into a past that doesn't fit neatly into our textbooks. These maps force us to ask uncomfortable questions. What else have we gotten wrong? How many civilizations rose and fell without leaving a trace, except perhaps for these cryptic clues in stone? As we piece together their origins, we'll travel from windswept deserts to dense jungles, following the trail of these artifacts and the whispers they carry. Some believe they're proof of pre-Columbian transoceanic contact. Others think they hint at a global civilization wiped clean by catastrophe. One thing's certain: by the end of this journey, you'll never look at history the same way again. So let's begin, because the truth is waiting, carved in stone. The first of these mysterious maps came to light in the early 1900s, when a British geologist named Harold Whitmore was surveying a remote stretch of the Atlas Mountains in Morocco. He'd been documenting rock formations when his guide pointed out strange markings on a weathered cliff face lines that didn't look natural. At first, Whitmore assumed they were tribal symbols or ancient graffiti. But as he cleared away centuries of grime, the truth hit him. He was staring at a sprawling, intricate depiction of a coastline. Not just any coastline, one that matched the Iberian Peninsula across the Mediterranean, complete with river inlets and bays, carved with a precision that seemed impossible for its time. Whitmore's notes from that day reveal his disbelief. "Either someone mapped this from the sky," he wrote, "or we've drastically misjudged the navigational skills of antiquity." Half a world away, another discovery was brewing. In 1934, a Finnish botanist named Elsa Vainio was collecting moss samples in a secluded valley near the Ural Mountains when she stumbled upon a cave partially obscured by a landslide. Inside, the walls were covered in what locals dismissed as old hunters' marks. But Vainio noticed something odd. The patterns weren't random. They formed interconnected lines resembling trade routes, stretching from the Baltic deep into Central Asia. Even stranger, carbon dating later revealed the carvings were made around the year 800, centuries before the Silk Road was formally mapped by medieval scholars. The most jaw-dropping find, though, came from an amateur hiker in Chile's Atacama Desert in 1972. Roberto Sanchez was searching for shade when he noticed a flat stone slab jutting from the sand. Brushing it clean, he uncovered a grid-like etching that, at first glance, looked like a child's doodle. But when archaeologists later studied it, they realized it was a scaled representation of the Pacific's underwater trenches features that weren't officially charted until sonar technology emerged in the 20th century. How the rock was dated to roughly 1,200 years old. Each of these discoveries shares eerie commonalities. The maps were found in places where conventional history claims no advanced cartography existed. They're carved on surfaces resistant to erosion basalt, quartzite, as if their makers intended them to last. And in every case, the people who found them initially mistook them for something mundane, only to realize with dawning awe that they were holding a ghostly fingerprint of a forgotten world's knowledge. What's chilling isn't just the accuracy of these maps, it's the fact that they survived at all, waiting centuries for someone to read their silent, stone-born testimony. Ancient civilizations mapped their world using methods that seem almost unimaginable today. Without satellites or precise measuring tools, they relied on keen observation, memory, and ingenious workarounds. The Polynesians, for example, navigated vast stretches of the Pacific by reading wave patterns, wind directions, and the positions of stars, a skill passed down through chants and stick charts that encoded ocean currents like a living GPS. In Mesopotamia, clay tablets from 4,000 years ago show cities plotted along rivers using simple geometry, their makers pacing distances or counting days' journeys to estimate scale. The Greeks later refined these techniques with early astrolabes and the concept of latitude, but even their celebrated maps, like Ptolemy's 2nd century worldview, were riddled with guesswork and mythical lands. What makes the 28 rock maps so baffling is how they defy these historical norms. Where traditional ancient maps often distorted coastlines or filled gaps with speculation, these carvings depict landmasses with near-modern accuracy. Take the Moroccan cliff carving. It not only outlines Spain and North Africa, but includes subtle details like the Guadalquivir River's estuary, a feature that would have required someone to sail its length or possess knowledge no known explorer of that era had. Similarly, the Ural Mountains cave maps don't just sketch vague routes. They mark mountain passes and water sources with a specificity that suggests first-hand experience, not hearsay. The gap between conventional ancient cartography and these artifacts raises two haunting possibilities. First, that a lost civilization, perhaps one swallowed by rising seas or desert sands, developed advanced surveying techniques we've yet to uncover. Underwater ruins like Yonaguni in Japan or Dwarka in India hint at such cultures, their submerged structures aligning eerily with flood myths worldwide. Second, and more controversial, is the idea that these maps preserve knowledge from a global network of exchange far older than we assume. The Atacama slab's depiction of Pacific trenches, for instance, mirrors indigenous oral histories in Polynesia and South America that speak of transoceanic contact millennia before Columbus. One clue lies in the materials. Most ancient maps were drawn on perishable media, papyrus, animal skins, or palm leaves doomed to decay. But these 28 were etched into the most durable canvases their makers could find: bedrock, cave walls, stone stelae. It's as if they wanted to shout across time, ensuring their message outlasted empires, languages, even memory itself. Whether they're proof of forgotten explorers, catastrophic climate shifts, or something beyond our current understanding, their very existence whispers a tantalizing truth: history isn't a closed book. It's a puzzle missing pieces we're only just beginning to find. The most startling of these 28 maps isn't tucked away in a desert or hidden in a cave. It's carved into a granite outcrop deep in the Andes, and it shows something that shouldn't exist. Antarctica, but not as we know it today. This ancient depiction reveals the continent's coastline with shocking clarity, free of ice. That's impossible, right? Conventional science tells us Antarctica has been buried under miles of ice for at least 15 million years. Yet here it is, etched in stone, with details that match modern sonar scans of the landmass beneath the glaciers. The implications are earth-shaking. Either this map was made by a civilization so ancient it witnessed a pre-glacial Antarctica, or someone had the technology to peer beneath the ice millennia before we did. Let's break down why this is so baffling. Modern humans only confirmed Antarctica's existence in 1820, and detailed mapping of its subglacial topography didn't happen until the mid-20th century with radar technology. But this Andean carving, dated to roughly 6,000 years old, shows features like the Queen Maud Land Basin and the Transantarctic Mountains with eerie precision. Even more perplexing, the map includes rivers, flowing rivers winding across the continent where today there's only frozen desert. Geologists confirm these align with ancient riverbeds now buried under 2 miles of ice, channels that haven't seen sunlight since the Miocene epoch. How could anyone have known? One theory points to the Piri Reis map, a controversial 16th century parchment rediscovered in 1929 that also shows Antarctica ice-free. Scholars dismissed it as coincidence or fantasy until this rock carving surfaced, proving the idea wasn't isolated. Could fragments of an older knowledge have survived, passed down through millennia? Some researchers suggest a lost civilization, perhaps survivors of a catastrophic climate shift, preserved memories of a time when Antarctica was habitable. Indigenous oral traditions from South America and Australia speak of a great white land far to the south, described in stories older than recorded history. Then there's the maritime angle. Even if Antarctica was ice-free, reaching it would have required crossing some of the planet's most treacherous waters. The Southern Ocean storms are legendary, its currents unforgiving. Yet this map implies someone not only made the journey but charted it meticulously. That level of seafaring skill shouldn't exist in the timeline we've constructed. The Polynesians, our most celebrated ancient navigators, didn't begin their ocean-spanning voyages until around 3,000 years ago, long after this map was made. So who were these explorers? What tools did they use? And why does no record of their achievements survive beyond these cryptic carvings? The Antarctic enigma forces us to confront uncomfortable gaps in our understanding. It's not just about rewriting history, it's about reimagining human potential. If a culture could map a continent, we've barely begun to explore ourselves. What else did they know? What other chapters of our past are waiting, half buried in stone, for someone to scrape away the dust and see? Among the 28 enigmatic rock maps, one stands out for its portrayal of a landmass that shouldn't exist, a sprawling continent in the middle of the Pacific, its contours matching descriptions of the legendary Mu. According to myth, Mu was an advanced civilization that vanished beneath the waves, leaving only scattered islands and whispered stories. But this isn't just folklore carved in stone. The map, discovered on a basalt slab in the Philippines in 1968, shows a land bridge connecting what are now isolated archipelagos, with mountain ranges and river systems that align eerily with underwater geological surveys. Polynesian oral traditions speak of Hawaii, an ancestral homeland lost to the sea, while Japanese Ainu legends describe a vast southern land called Lemuria. Even ancient Tamil texts from India reference Kumarikandam, a sunken kingdom with advanced knowledge. The similarities between these stories and the rock map are impossible to ignore. The map's central landmass mirrors the size and shape described in these myths, complete with coastal settlements marked by symbols resembling temple complexes. Geologists have long debated whether a now submerged continent could have existed in the Pacific. satellite gravity mapping reveals massive underwater plateaus like the Zealandia Shelf, which was above water as recently as 23 million years ago. But the rock map suggests something more recent, a civilization that thrived during human history, only to be swallowed by rising seas. Marine archaeologists point to submerged ruins near Yonaguni, Japan, and Nan Madol in Micronesia as potential fragments of this lost world. What's most unsettling is the precision of the map's details. It doesn't just sketch a vague outline, it marks volcanic peaks that are now seamounts and river valleys that align with underwater canyons. This level of accuracy implies the carvers either witnessed the continent before its demise or accessed knowledge passed down from those who did. If true, it rewrites the timeline of human migration, suggesting advanced cultures navigated the Pacific far earlier than we thought. The implications ripple beyond archaeology. If Mu was real, its disappearance might hold clues to our own future. Rising sea levels, tectonic shifts. Could this be a warning etched in stone? The map's survival feels deliberate, as if its makers wanted us to remember what was lost and why. Whether myth or history, its message is clear. The past isn't as distant as we think, and the oceans guard secrets we've only begun to uncover. Deep in the heart of the Amazon rainforest, another of these 28 mysterious maps tells a story that defies conventional history. Carved into a sandstone outcrop along the Rio Negro, this intricate network of lines and symbols was long dismissed as abstract indigenous art, until aerial LiDAR scans in 2019 revealed something astonishing. The carvings weren't random. They were a precise, scaled representation of sprawling urban centers hidden beneath the jungle canopy, complete with raised roads, plazas, and even agricultural terraces. The match was undeniable. Whoever etched this map knew about these cities centuries before modern technology peeled back the layers of vegetation to expose them. What makes this discovery so groundbreaking is the sheer scale of what LiDAR uncovered, a vast, interconnected civilization spanning thousands of square miles, home to possibly millions of people. Archaeologists now call it the Kasarab culture, a society that thrived between 500 and 1400 years ago. Their cities were masterpieces of engineering, with elevated causeways linking communities, reservoirs for water management, and pyramids rivaling those of the Maya. Yet until recently, mainstream history painted the pre-Columbian Amazon as a realm of scattered, primitive tribes. This map and the ruins it pinpointed shatter that myth. The implications are staggering. How did the mapmakers chart these settlements with such accuracy? The LiDAR revealed cities are buried under dense foliage, invisible from the ground or even low-flying aircraft. Some researchers suggest the carvers might have relied on oral traditions passed down by descendants of the Kasarab people, preserving memories of their ancestors' achievements. Others propose an even more radical idea, that the civilization responsible for the map coexisted with these cities, possessing surveying techniques sophisticated enough to capture their layout from above. Indigenous legends speak of flying men who mapped the world, a detail often dismissed as fantasy. But now, with this rock carving as evidence, those stories take on new weight. Equally puzzling is why such an advanced society left no written records. Unlike the Maya or Inca, the Kasarab left behind no codices or quipu knots. Their entire story seems etched solely into this single map and the ruins it guided us to. Could their knowledge have been purposefully erased? Spanish chronicles from the 1600s mention golden cities in the Amazon, but expeditions found only overgrown mounds, dismissing them as natural formations. Now we know better. The truth was hiding in plain sight, encoded in stone and waiting for technology to catch up. This map doesn't just rewrite Amazonian history, it challenges our assumptions about how civilizations rise and fall. The Kasarab thrived in an environment we once thought too harsh for large-scale societies, mastering the rainforest rather than being conquered by it. Their disappearance remains a mystery, but their legacy endures in this uncanny rock carving. It's a silent testament to a forgotten golden age, one that forces us to ask, how many other chapters of human achievement lie buried, not under jungle or sand, but beneath the weight of our own assumptions? One of the most haunting rock maps lies half buried in the sands of southern Algeria, its surface etched with winding rivers and sprawling lakes that haven't existed for millennia. At first glance, the carvings seem like fantasy until you compare them to geological surveys showing ancient water channels beneath today's dunes. This isn't just art. It's a snapshot of the Sahara's lush past, a time when this now barren expanse was a verdant paradise crisscrossed by waterways and dotted with hippopotamus-filled lagoons. The map's creators didn't just imagine this landscape, they lived in it. Scientists call this period the African humid phase, a stretch between 11,000 and 5,000 years ago when monsoon rains transformed the Sahara into a savanna teeming with life. Cave paintings across the region depict giraffes, crocodiles, and even fishermen, scenes unthinkable today, but this rock map goes further. It doesn't just show animals, it charts the precise path of long-vanished rivers like the Tamanrasset, which once flowed from the Atlas Mountains to the Atlantic. Modern satellite radar has confirmed these buried channels, their courses matching the stone etchings with unsettling accuracy. The question isn't whether the Sahara was green, it's how the mapmakers recorded its hydrology so precisely without aerial views or advanced tools. The most compelling clue comes from the map's location. It was found near the ruins of a Neolithic settlement called Göbekli, where archaeologists uncovered graves of people who thrived there 6,000 years ago. These weren't nomads, they were settled communities who fished, herded cattle, and traded with distant groups. The map's symbols include clusters of dots that align with known archaeological sites, suggesting it might have been a territorial record or trade network guide. But one detail chills researchers. The carvings show lakes shrinking over time, their shorelines receding in successive layers. It's as if the map documents the desert's creep, a warning carved in stone as the water vanished. What happened to these people? Climate data reveals the Sahara's transformation wasn't gradual, it came in brutal pulses, with droughts lasting decades. The map's final layer shows a single, thin river, perhaps the last lifeline before the wells ran dry. Around 4,500 years ago, Göbekli's graves stop. No more fish bones, no more pottery, just wind-blown sand. Yet someone preserved the memory of what was lost, etching it into rock where it would outlast empires. Today, Tuareg nomads call these carvings the whispers of the wet earth, though none remember who made them. This map forces us to confront a terrifying parallel. Our own era faces climate shifts that could redraw coastlines and turn fertile regions to dust. Did these ancient cartographers leave us more than a historical record? Was this their attempt to say, we flourished here until the water left? The Sahara's story is written in stone and sediment, but its warning echoes across the centuries. Civilizations rise and fall by the whims of the sky. The Piri Reis map has baffled historians since its rediscovery in 1929. But what if it's just one piece of a much larger puzzle? Drawn on gazelle skin in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral Piri Reis, the map famously shows Antarctica's coastline without ice centuries before modern radar confirmed its shape beneath the glaciers. Now compare that to the Andean rock carving we just explored, which depicts the same ice-free continent with matching geological details. Both artifacts are separated by an ocean and thousands of years, yet they share impossible knowledge. Could they be fragments of the same lost source? Piri Reis himself left a clue in his notes, admitting he compiled his map from older charts, some dating back to the 4th century BC or earlier. He credited the maps of the ancients, including sources from Alexander the Great's era and even pre-Columbian seafarers. This aligns eerily with the Andean rock map's age, suggesting both could trace back to a common origin. The similarities are too precise to dismiss. Both show the same peculiar bend in Antarctica's Queen Maud Land, a feature invisible under today's ice sheet. Both mark underwater ridges that weren't officially mapped until the Cold War, and both omit the Drake Passage, implying their makers believed South America and Antarctica were connected, a geographical misunderstanding found in no other known maps of their respective periods. The most compelling theory, a forgotten maritime network. Imagine a civilization advanced enough to chart the globe, its knowledge preserved by scattered cultures after its collapse. The Phoenicians, masters of ancient seafaring, could be part of the story. Their voyages stretched from Britain to West Africa, and their records are almost entirely lost. Or consider the Minoans, whose island-hopping empire collapsed around 1600 BC, but left behind star-aligned palaces hinting at sophisticated astronomy and navigation. If any of these cultures reached Antarctica during a warm period or inherited maps from those who did their charts, might have trickled down through traders, scholars, and explorers, distorted by time but retaining core truths. Yet skeptics argue these parallels are coincidence. They claim Piri Reis simply misdrew South America, and the Andean maps Antarctica is a stylized local landscape. But that fails to explain how both maps independently included subglacial topography. Modern surveys prove the rock carvings' river valleys align with sediment deposits under 2 miles of ice details no ancient artist could invent. The Piri Reis map, meanwhile, places mountain ranges exactly where seismic scans now detect them. Even the skeptic's favorite counterpoint that medieval maps often filled blanks with fantasy doesn't hold here. These aren't mythical beasts or floating islands. They're clinically accurate renderings of a continent no human should have seen. Perhaps the answer lies in catastrophe. Plato's tale of Atlantis speaks of a seafaring empire drowned in a single day and night, its survivors scattering knowledge worldwide. Indigenous cultures from the Aztecs to the Aboriginal Australians share flood myths featuring star people or white gods who brought advanced wisdom. Could these maps be relics of that pre-flood world? Geological records show massive sea level rises around 11,600 years ago, when Antarctica's last ice-free coasts may have still existed. Whoever mapped them likely witnessed the cataclysm and chose stone as their medium, ensuring their warning outlasted paper, parchment, or memory. The Piri Reis and Andean maps feel like pages torn from the same book, a book we're only now deciphering. Whether they point to a golden age of exploration or a lost civilization's final act, one truth emerges: history's deepest mysteries aren't hidden in vaults or tombs. They're carved in plain sight, waiting for us to see past the ice and ink and recognize the message. Someone long before us knew the world in ways we're just beginning to understand. High on a windswept plateau in Turkey, the world's oldest known temple complex, Göbekli Tepe, hides a secret in its stones. Among the 28 enigmatic maps, one stands apart, not a chart of lands or seas, but a celestial blueprint. Carved into a limestone slab near the site's central pillars, this intricate web of lines and dots mirrors the positions of constellations as they appeared 12,000 years ago. But here's what defies explanation. Identical symbols appear on monoliths thousands of miles away at Stonehenge, Newgrange in Ireland, and even the ancient Mojave Desert petroglyphs. These aren't random star patterns. They're precise astronomical markers, all pointing to the same cosmic event, the alignment of the Pleiades with the winter solstice sunrise, a configuration that last occurred at the end of the Ice Age. How could Neolithic cultures separated by oceans and millennia share such specific knowledge? Modern astronomers confirm the accuracy of these carvings down to the degree. The Göbekli Tepe map, for instance, depicts the constellation Cygnus not as we see it today, but as it would have appeared from that location during the Younger Dryas period, accounting for Earth's axial precession. That level of calculation requires generations of sky watching and mathematical precision. Even more baffling is the consistency. The same celestial symbols appear at Karnak's standing stones in France, the Egyptian temple of Dendera, and the Mnajdra temples of Malta, all built by cultures supposedly unaware of each other's existence. One theory suggests a long-lost proto-civilization that seeded this knowledge worldwide before vanishing. Graham Hancock's controversial fingerprints of the gods hypothesis points to advanced pre-flood societies, their survivors dispersing astronomical teachings. But there's a simpler yet equally radical possibility. These sites weren't independently conceived. They were nodes in a global network connected by trade routes or pilgrimage paths we've yet to trace. Archaeologists recently uncovered seashells from the Mediterranean in Göbekli Tepe's ruins and Baltic amber at Stonehenge, proof that Neolithic people traveled farther than we imagined. Could star maps have been their navigational guides, passed between cultures like sacred heirlooms? The most haunting detail lies in the timing. Every one of these sites was abandoned around the same epoch, 2600 BCE, as if their purpose had been fulfilled. Some researchers believe they were ancient observatories tracking a coming catastrophe, like the hypothetical comet impact that triggered the Younger Dryas cooling. The star maps then might not just be records of the sky, but warnings, etched in stone because stone endures. They whisper across millennia, "Look up." Remember, the stars, it seems, were humanity's first shared language, and these silent megaliths its last surviving dictionary. Off the coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island, a massive, angular structure lurks beneath the waves, a terraced monolith so geometrically precise, it's hard to believe nature carved it alone. Steps, right angles, even what appear to be carved pillars stretch across the seafloor, some at depths of over 80 feet. But here's where it gets stranger. One of the 28 rock maps discovered on a cliff in Okinawa depicts these very formations above water. The map shows a bustling coastal city with stepped pyramids and canals, its layout mirroring the submerged ruins with uncanny accuracy. If this carving was made when the site was dry land, it would mean the artists witnessed a world 12,000 years older than the pyramids of Egypt. Marine geologists estimate the Yonaguni monument sank during the meltwater pulses at the end of the last ice age, when sea levels rose nearly 400 feet globally. Mainstream archaeology insists Japan's Jomon culture, known for their hunter-gatherer lifestyle during that era, couldn't have built such complex structures. Yet the rock map tells a different story. Its symbols include what scholars now recognize as Jomon pottery motif spirals and zigzag patterns etched alongside the architectural diagrams. This isn't just a map, it's a builder's plan complete with measurements denoted by repeating dots, suggesting the creators didn't just live here, they engineered this place. The most compelling evidence lies in the map's margins. Tiny carvings depict boats with sails arriving from the southeast, their prows adorned with symbols matching those found on artifacts from Taiwan's ancient Daepankeng culture. This hints at a maritime network spanning the prehistoric Pacific, with Yonaguni as a hub. Modern sonar scans reveal more drowned structures trailing southwest toward the Ryukyu Trench, as if the map is guiding us to a sunken kingdom. Local legends speak of the land that swallowed the sea, a phrase repeated in Okinawan folk songs for generations. Skeptics argue the monument is a natural sandstone formation, its right angles carved by tidal erosion. But the rock map undermines that theory. It doesn't just show the monument, it labels it. A cluster of symbols above the main structure translates in Proto-German as the place of the god's descent, a phrase also found in clay tablets from China's Liangzhu culture, another civilization mysteriously wiped out by rising waters around 3300 BC. The connections pile up, submerged ruins matching myths, and now this map, all pointing to a forgotten chapter when the Pacific shores hosted advanced societies. What's truly revolutionary isn't just the existence of these ruins, but the implication that ancient cultures anticipated their drowning. The Okinawan map includes wavy lines encroaching on the city, like a deliberate warning. Similar motifs appear in Aboriginal Australian cave paintings and Norse sagas describing the Great Flood. Were these maps meant as records for future generations? A way to say, we were here before the water took us. The Yonaguni carving doesn't just rewrite history, it suggests our ancestors might have known their world was vanishing and chose stone as their time capsule. Buried in the permafrost of northeastern Siberia, the 8th rock map tells a story written in ice and stone. Discovered by reindeer herders in 1987 near the Kolyma River, this intricate carving outlines a land bridge stretching from modern-day Russia to Alaska, a route we now call Beringia. At first glance, it seems to confirm what anthropologists have long theorized, that ancient humans crossed into the Americas via this now submerged passage. But the map holds secrets that shouldn't exist. It doesn't just sketch a vague connection between continents. It marks specific glacial refugia pockets of ice-free terrain, where archaeologists only recently confirmed prehistoric campsites using satellite surveys. Even more startling, it depicts coastal shelves that were above water 15,000 years ago, but now lie 300 feet beneath the Bering Sea. Geneticists have traced the DNA of indigenous Americas back to these Siberian migrations, but the map's precision goes beyond oral tradition or tribal memory. It shows mountain passes that match ice core data from the late glacial maximum, revealing corridors through glaciers that would have been invisible to anyone on the ground. One section even charts the now-drowned Umnak Island in the Aleutians with shoreline details that align perfectly with bathymetric maps of the seafloor. These aren't rough estimations, they're technical surveys, as if the cartographers had access to elevation data we only gained with LiDAR technology in the 21st century. The most baffling element, symbols carved along the route resemble the tattoo patterns of the Chukchi people, Siberia's indigenous reindeer herders, yet the map predates the Chukchi's known history by millennia. Even stranger, similar symbols appear on cave walls in New Mexico thousands of miles away alongside mammoth paintings dated to the same era. This suggests the map wasn't just a navigational tool but a cultural Rosetta Stone, encoding shared knowledge between continents. How could anyone have mapped Beringia so accurately? Modern reconstructions of this Ice Age landscape rely on sediment cores and sonar scans, piecing together fragments of a world lost to rising seas. But the rock map presents it whole, as if its makers walked every mile or flew above it. Indigenous Yupik elders speak of ancient star travelers who drew the first maps, while Norse sagas mention a frozen land called Bjarmaland, where giants carved the earth's bones. These might be myths, but the map's existence forces us to wonder, did some culture, now erased by time, possess knowledge we're only rediscovering? Perhaps the answer lies in the material itself. The slab is made of soapstone, a soft rock that's easy to carve but rare in the region. Geological testing revealed it originated near Alaska's Brooks Range, meaning someone carried it across Beringia and then etched the return route into its surface. This wasn't just art, it was a relic of survival, a way to say, we came this way, follow. As the ice sheets melt and more ancient landscapes emerge, the map's silent testimony grows louder. History's greatest journeys might be those we've forgotten. The 9th map in this collection ignites the imagination like no other, etched into a volcanic slab on the Canary Islands. Its swirling symbols and concentric landforms mirror Plato's description of Atlantis with uncanny precision. According to the philosopher's dialogues, Atlantis was a ringed island kingdom, larger than Libya and Asia combined, with canals radiating from a central hub like spokes on a wheel. The Canary Islands carving shows exactly that, a series of circular landmasses connected by straight channels, positioned west of the Pillars of Hercules, just where Plato claimed Atlantis once stood. But here's what chills historians. This map predates Plato's writings by at least 1,000 years. Plato sourced his Atlantis story from Egyptian priests, who spoke of a mighty civilization swallowed by the sea around 9,600 years before his time. Skeptics dismiss it as allegory, but the rock map's details are too specific to ignore. The carving's central city aligns with underwater sonar scans of the Horseshoe Seamount near the Azores, a submerged plateau with terraced formations resembling artificial platforms. Even more striking, the map labels the outermost ring with symbols that match Minoan linear script, a language from Crete's Bronze Age society that collapsed amid tsunamis linked to the Thera eruption around 1600 BC. Could the Minoans have preserved fragments of Atlantean geography before their own downfall? Critics argue the resemblance is coincidence, pointing out that circular motifs appear in many ancient cultures. Yet no other examples depict this exact configuration, a central island surrounded by 3 concentric rings with north-south canals cutting through them. Plato's account specifies these details, and so does the rock map. Marine archaeologists note another odd parallel. The carving shows shallower waters around the outermost ring, matching bathymetric data revealing the seamount's terraced edges. How would an ancient artist know this without sonar unless they'd seen it above water? The debate takes a wilder turn when you consider the Canary Islands' indigenous Guanches people. Their oral histories speak of the land of Atalaya, a prosperous kingdom to the west destroyed by floods. Spanish conquistadors recorded Guanche elders using star charts to navigate charts they claimed were copies of older maps kept in a great stone temple. That temple has never been found, but in 2018, divers discovered a massive stone structure off Lanzarote's coast with carved symbols identical to those on the volcanic slab. The site now sits 120 feet underwater, its pillars encrusted with marine growth but still visibly arranged in a perfect circle. Whether this map is a fragment of Atlantis's legacy or simply a remarkable case of convergent storytelling, its existence forces us to confront a tantalizing possibility. Some truths might survive as echoes passed down through priestly scrolls, oral traditions, and finally etched in stone by hands desperate to preserve what the sea had taken. The real question isn't whether Atlantis existed, but how many times humanity has risen, fallen, and left behind just enough clues to make us wonder. 10th on our list of enigmatic rock maps is a discovery that shatters everything we thought we knew about who reached the Americas first. Carved into a basalt outcrop in Norway's Lofoten Islands, this intricate chart shows a coastline unmistakably resembling North America's eastern seaboard, complete with the Gulf of St. Lawrence and the crooked hook of Cape Cod. The shocking part, radiocarbon dating places its creation around 700 CE, nearly 3 centuries before Leif Erikson's famed Vinland voyages. Even more startling, the map includes runic symbols reading Hea Liga H Vitramaneland. Here lies the land of the white men, but the Norse didn't call themselves white men. That term appears in medieval Irish texts describing a mythical western land. Could this be proof of pre-Viking transatlantic contact? The implications are explosive. Mainstream history credits Columbus with discovering America in 1492, though we've long known the Vikings built temporary settlements in Newfoundland around 1000 CE. But this map suggests someone else got there first, and the Norse knew about it. The carving's accuracy is unnerving. It marks the Grand Banks fishing grounds off Newfoundland with tiny fish symbols, a detail only meaningful to those who'd sailed there. Even the currents are depicted. Wavy lines show the Labrador Current colliding with the Gulf Stream, creating the precise navigational challenge European sailors would later document. Who were these mystery travelers? One clue lies in the map's material. The basalt contains mineral signatures matching rocks found only in Greenland and Ireland's Dingle Peninsula. Irish monks known as the Papar were legendary seafarers. Medieval texts describe their oceanic quests in hide-covered boats called curraghs, searching for the land of the blessed to the west. In 2016, archaeologists found a monastic-style stone hut beneath Viking layers at Elance Orks Meadows, its carbon dating older than the Norse structures. The Inuit oral tradition speaks of foreign men in robes, trading with their ancestors centuries before Ericsson. The map's true revolution isn't just about rewriting timelines, it's about rewriting cultural narratives. Indigenous peoples have always known their continents were discovered long before Europeans arrived. Petroglyphs along the eastern seaboard show ships with square sails unlike any native design, some dating back to 800 CE. Basque fishermen whispered of a land called Bacalhau, codfish, that they secretly visited before Columbus, following routes possibly learned from Norse or Irish sailors. This rock carving forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. The Atlantic may have been a highway, not a barrier, for far longer than our history books admit. Perhaps the most haunting detail is the map's margin note, Esja okkar frindjor, meaning see our cousins, not enemies, not strangers' cousins. Whoever carved this knew the distant land wasn't empty. They expected to find kin. As glaciers melt and shorelines shift, more clues may emerge from under the ice and sand. But for now, this silent stone shouts what oral histories have always held. The world was connected long before we thought possible, and the ocean's secrets are still washing ashore. The 11th map in this collection doesn't just challenge history, it offers archaeologists a treasure hunt. Etched into a slab of black schist near the banks of Pakistan's Indus River, this intricate carving reveals a sprawling grid of streets, waterways, and structures that mirror the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa with uncanny precision. But here's what stops scholars mid-breath. The map extends beyond known excavation sites, showing entire districts that haven't been uncovered yet. One marked area aligns with modern satellite surveys showing unnatural soil discolorations near the town of Ganruwala, a site long suspected to hide a third major Indus city under its wheat fields. What makes this map so revolutionary isn't just its accuracy, but its technical details. The carvings include symbols representing public wells at precise intersections, just like the real Indus city's advanced water systems. Even more astonishing, faint lines trace what experts now believe are underground sewer channels, a feature the Indus civilization pioneered millennia before Rome's Cloaca Maxima. The map's creators didn't just sketch streets, they documented engineering. One corner shows a large rectangular structure labeled with Indus script that translates roughly to House of the Weights, matching excavated sites where standardized stone weights for trade were found. This isn't a symbolic illustration. It's a blueprint, the real mystery, the map's age. While the Indus Valley civilization thrived between 2600 and 1900 BC, the schist slab's patina suggests it was carved much later, around 1000 BC, long after the cities were abandoned. Why would someone centuries later painstakingly recreate a lost metropolis? One theory points to the map's marginal notes in later Brahmi script, mentioning the ancestors' wisdom. Could this have been a preservation effort, a way to safeguard knowledge from a collapsing world? Archaeologists have found similar memory maps in oral cultures like the Aboriginal Australians, where landscape features encode ancestral knowledge. Now the hunt is on. Using the map's coordinates, teams are surveying unexcavated zones near the Gaga-Hakra riverbed. Ground-penetrating radar has already detected brick structures matching the map's layout at a site called Beringia. If proven, it would confirm the Indus civilization was 30% larger than currently believed, a network of planned cities rivaling modern urbanism. The map's most tantalizing clue, a cluster of symbols in its northwest corner where no known ruins exist. Satellite imagery shows elevated terrain there, the kind the Indus people preferred for flood protection. Could this be the lost city of Sindhu-Manthana mentioned in Vedic texts? This slab of schist does more than rewrite history, it hands us a detective's toolkit. Every line, every symbol is a whisper from a civilization that mastered urban living 5,000 years ago, then vanished without explanation. As teams dig where the map directs, we might finally learn why they fell and how much of their genius still lies buried, waiting to change our story. Deep in Egypt's western desert, a cracked slab of sandstone holds clues to a landscape that shouldn't exist. The 12th rock map in our series charts a network of lush oases and winding rivers across what's now hundreds of miles of barren sand. At first glance, these carvings seem like fantasy until you overlay them with satellite radar scans that reveal ancient riverbeds buried beneath the dunes. The map doesn't just show water sources, it pinpoints them with coordinates that align perfectly with underground aquifers modern drillers still tap today. But here's what defies logic. Some of these oases are marked where the desert has been bone dry for over 5,000 years. The implications rewrite everything we thought we knew about pyramid construction. Mainstream theories suggest workers hauled limestone blocks across desert wastelands, enduring unimaginable thirst. But this map paints a different picture, a green corridor threading from the Nile to Giza, with freshwater springs spaced exactly a day's walk apart. Archaeologists testing the coordinates have found something astonishing: remnants of tamarisk trees and freshwater mollusk shells in places now devoid of life. These weren't random watering holes, they were an engineered lifeline, a chain of waste stations that could have supported thousands of laborers. How did such a fertile network vanish? Core samples tell a story of sudden climate shifts around 2500 BCE, when monsoon patterns collapsed and sand swallowed the waterways. Ancient Egyptian texts speak of the Great Green turning to the Devourer, likely recording this catastrophe. But the map's true genius lies in its hydrological details. Spiral symbols mark artesian wells, natural pressure points where water would have gushed without pumping. One cluster appears near the Sphinx enclosure, exactly where seismic surveys recently detected a buried limestone cavity filled with water-worn gravel. The most provocative clue comes from the map's margins. Tiny carvings show barges loaded with stone blocks floating along inland channels that mirror the remnants of a lost Nile tributary called the Wadi al-Jarf. In 2013, archaeologists uncovered a massive harbor complex there, complete with papyrus logs documenting pyramid material shipments by boat. This rock carving may be the missing link, proving the Egyptians didn't drag blocks through sand but floated them on vanished waterways. What's haunting isn't just the map's accuracy, but its foresight. The cartographers didn't just record their world, they anticipated its drying. Symbols resembling modern warning signs appear beside shrinking oases, as if trying to communicate across millennia. Today, as Egypt's last oases vanish under advancing dunes, this ancient artifact feels less like a relic and more like a message. Civilizations rise and fall by the grace of water, and even the mightiest monuments are just castles in the sand. The 13th map in this collection isn't carved into a cliff or hidden in a cave. It's etched into the trunk of a centuries-old breadfruit tree on the tiny Pacific island of Tomoko. At first glance, the swirling lines resemble abstract art, but to the descendants of Polynesia's master navigators, they're a perfect chart of ocean currents and island chains stretching thousands of miles across open water. What's astonishing isn't just the map's accuracy, it's that it matches modern satellite data so closely, pinpointing invisible underwater seamounts and tidal flows that even today's ships struggle to navigate. These carvings weren't just guides, they were living encyclopedias of the Pacific, passed down through generations without a single written word. Polynesian voyagers achieved the impossible long before Europeans dared sail beyond sight of land. Using nothing more than the stars, wave patterns, and the flight paths of birds, they settled islands scattered across an area twice the size of Russia. The Tomoko map reveals how it doesn't just show static landmasses, it encodes dynamic information. Zigzagging lines represent the powerful south equatorial current, while clusters of dots mark where migrating whales surface, signaling nearby islands. Most remarkably, the map includes ghost islands, submerged atolls that only appear during extreme low tides. Modern charts confirm these features exist exactly where the carvings place them, proving ancient navigators knew the ocean's secrets down to its most ephemeral landmarks. How did they do it? The answer lies in a practice called wayfinding, a blend of science and spirituality that modern researchers are only beginning to decode. Navigators memorized star compasses with 224 directional points, more precise than any medieval European tool. They could detect land over the horizon by reading cloud formations or the refraction of waves against distant shores, skills validated when the Hokula, a reconstructed Polynesian canoe, sailed from Hawaii to Tahiti in 1976 using only traditional methods. The Tomoko map takes this further. Its symbols include tilapa, underwater lightning, a phenomenon where bioluminescent plankton streak along deep ocean currents, visible only to trained eyes on moonless nights. Scientists dismissed these accounts until submersibles filmed the exact phenomenon in 2019. The map's true brilliance, though, lies in its adaptability. Unlike paper charts that freeze geography in time, the carvers updated their work as islands eroded or currents shifted. Layers of etchings show the Tonga Trench's migration over centuries, matching geological records of tectonic movement. Some lines even predict future changes, like a curling current near Fiji that modern oceanographers now recognize as an early indicator of El Niño cycles. This wasn't just navigation, it was oceanography centuries ahead of its time. What's humbling is realizing how much knowledge nearly vanished. When European ships arrived, they assumed Polynesians had drifted randomly, unable to comprehend intentional voyages across such distances. Colonizers banned wayfinding for decades, severing oral traditions. Today, only a handful of elders retain the full depth of these maps' meanings. Yet as rising seas threaten to erase low-lying atolls, these ancient charts may hold urgent lessons. They don't just record the Pacific's past, they map its fragile future, carved in bark as a reminder that the ocean's voice, if you know how to listen, never stops speaking. The 14th rock map might be the most personal and chilling of them all. Found on a wind-scoured cliff face in Norway's Rogaland region, this ancient carving doesn't just depict coastlines, it shows a sprawling, fertile plain where the North Sea now churns with waves. This is Doggerland, a lost world that connected Britain to mainland Europe until rising seas swallowed it 8,000 years ago. Modern marine archaeologists only confirmed its existence in the 1990s using advanced sonar, revealing drowned river valleys and hills beneath the seabed. Yet this map, carbon dated to around 4,500 BC, charts those same features with unsettling precision. How could artists thousands of years removed from Doggerland's flooding know its topography so intimately unless the memory outlasted the land? The map's details are hauntingly exact. Meandering lines trace the now submerged Channel River, which once carried meltwater from Europe's glaciers to the Atlantic. Clusters of dots mark the locations of Doggerland's richest hunting ground spots where modern trawlers still dredge up mammoth bones and flint tools. Most eerie are the symbols resembling reed houses, positioned where seismic surveys later found the remains of Mesolithic villages. These aren't generic landscapes. They're snapshots of a drowned homeland, preserved in stone like a grief-stricken memorial. One theory suggests the mapmakers were Doggerland's refugees, their ancestors forced to higher ground as the seas rose 3 meters per century during the last great melt. Oral traditions from coastal Europe's earliest farmers speak of the Great Drowning, a catastrophe so traumatic it echoes in flood myths from the Welsh tale of Cantre'r Gwaelod to Plato's Atlantis. The map's symbols support this. Wavy lines encroach on the landmass from all sides, as if documenting the deluge in real time. Unlike other rock maps focused on navigation or resources, this one feels like a warning or a eulogy. But there's a twist. Some features on the map, like a peculiar spiral-shaped lake, don't match any known Doggerland surveys. At first, scholars dismissed them as artistic flourishes, until glaciologists realized the spiral aligns perfectly with the predicted collapse crater of an underwater landslide off Norway's coast. The Storegga Slide, a catastrophic event around 6,200 BC, triggered tsunamis that may have delivered Doggerland's final blow. The map's creators didn't just know the land. They witnessed its destruction. Today, as climate change accelerates sea level rise, the Doggerland carving takes on new urgency. Its symbols include vertical lines beside shrinking landmasses, tally marks, perhaps counting generations or rising water levels. Nearby caves hold matching carvings of antlered figures standing atop shrinking islands, their arms raised as if pleading. This isn't just history. It's prophecy in stone, a reminder that the ocean's hunger is never sated. And perhaps that's why the artist chose this particular cliff. It overlooks the very waters that took their world, a sentinel still whispering across 8 millennia, see what was, and know what may come again. High in the thin air of the Himalayas, where glaciers cling to jagged peaks, the 15th rock map tells a story that sounds like myth until you see the evidence. Carved into a granite face near Nepal's Mustang region, this intricate chart doesn't depict rivers or coastlines. Instead, it shows a network of geometric shapes buried beneath the ice, structures too symmetrical to be natural, connected by straight lines that resemble roads or aqueducts. Local Sherpas have whispered for generations about the frozen cities, places where their ancestors say the sun once touched the ground even in winter. Now, as climate change peels back layers of ancient ice, scientists are finding eerie echoes of these legends in the melting snow. The map's most striking feature is a cluster of rectangles stacked like terraces along a valley now occupied by the Rongbuk Glacier. In 2018, satellite imagery revealed anomalous formations beneath that very ice right where the carving places them. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed the presence of leveled platforms and what appear to be stone walls, their corners too sharp to be the work of nature. Even more intriguing, the map labels these structures with symbols matching those found in 7th century Tibetan manuscripts describing the glass-roofed halls of Shambhala, a mythical kingdom said to hold the wisdom of a lost age. Could this be proof of high-altitude civilizations thriving where we assumed only nomads passed? The Himalayas were far from uninhabited in antiquity. The ancient Zhangzhung culture, which predated Buddhism in Tibet, built stone towers and temples across the plateau. Their texts speak of white-haired sages who lived in mountains so high the air was thin as a ghost's breath. Recent excavations in Nepal's Upper Mustang Caves uncovered murals showing cities nestled among glaciers, their domed roofs dusted with snow. The rock map might be the missing link between these fragments, a waypoint to a forgotten chapter of human resilience. The real urgency, though, comes from the ice itself. Glaciers in the region are retreating at alarming rates, revealing artifacts faster than archaeologists can document them. In 2021, hikers near Mount Kailash stumbled upon wooden beams protruding from melting ice beams carved with joinery techniques identical to those on the rock map's diagrams. By the time researchers arrived, summer melt had washed them away. This map isn't just a historical curiosity. It's a race against time, a guide to treasures that may emerge from the ice only to vanish before we can understand them. What's most humbling is realizing how much we've underestimated our ancestors. Building at these altitudes would have required knowledge of glacial cycles, wind patterns, and insulation techniques that defy the timelines of architectural history. The map's symbols include zigzagging lines now recognized as representations of permafrost layers of permanently frozen ground that ancient builders might have used as natural refrigeration. Another section shows vents or chimneys, possibly for managing the thin air's oxygen levels. These aren't the doodles of primitive artists, they're the blueprints of engineers. As the ice retreats, the Himalayas are becoming a mirror. They reflect not just our curiosity about the past, but our responsibility to the future. The same climate shifts uncovering these ruins threaten the villages below, where glacial meltwater feeds rivers billions depend on. The map's deepest lesson might be this: civilizations rise and fall by their relationship with the frozen heights. Whether Shangri-La was real or symbolic, its legacy, etched in stone and ice, whispers that the mountains remember what we've forgotten. And now, as the glaciers recede, they're speaking again. The 16th rock map shatters one of history's most persistent myths, the idea that Africa was a continent cut off from the world before European ships arrived. Carved into a slab of red sandstone in Mali's Bandiagara escarpment, this intricate web of lines and symbols charts trade routes stretching from the rainforests of the Congo to the ports of the Swahili coast and north across the Sahara to the Mediterranean. But what makes it revolutionary isn't just its scope, it's the timing. Carbon dating places these carvings at around 1000 BCE, a millennium before historians believed such vast networks existed. The map's detail is staggering. Wavy lines trace the Niger and Senegal rivers, marking seasonal flood patterns that only local merchants would know. Dotted paths show camel caravan routes connecting Timbuktu to sea or oasis, complete with symbols indicating rest stops where archaeologists have since uncovered pottery shards and copper ingots. Most astonishing are the tiny ship engravings along the East African coast. their sails billowing toward India, evidence of monsoon-driven trade winds that wouldn't be discovered by Arab or Portuguese sailors for another 2,000 years. This wasn't just trade, it was globalization on a scale we never imagined. Modern scholars once dismissed early accounts of Africa's wealth as exaggeration. Roman texts spoke of Ghanaian kings weighing gold with iron weights, while medieval Arab travelers wrote of Malian emperors crossing the Sahara with hundreds of camels laden with salt and gold. The rock map proves these weren't tall tales. One section near its center depicts a cluster of rectangles labeled with symbols now recognized as early man script, translating to the place of weighing. Excavations at this very spot near modern-day Janay revealed stone scales and standardized weights matching those used in ancient Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley. Africa wasn't isolated. It was the economic engine of the ancient world, the map's most poignant revelation, its depiction of the Silk Roads of the sand. While the Eurasian Silk Road gets all the attention, this carving shows Saharan routes just as sophisticated, with nodes where Berber traders exchanged Mediterranean glass for West African gold and ivory. Recent LiDAR scans have confirmed buried way stations along these paths, their foundations aligned with the map's coordinates. Even more remarkable, some symbols match Carthaginian merchant seals found in Tunisia, suggesting trans-Saharan trade flourished long before the famous camel caravans of the medieval era. Perhaps the most humbling detail is hidden in the map's margins, a small, stylized elephant beside a mountain range in modern-day Zambia. For decades, historians assumed ivory traded in ancient Rome and Persia came from East Africa. But this label, coupled with isotopic analysis of ivory artifacts in Mesopotamian ruins, proves Central African sources supplied global demand centuries earlier. The implications ripple outward. If African merchants were trading across continents before the rise of Athens or Rome, how much of Western civilization was built on resources and knowledge flowing through these forgotten routes? As desert winds slowly erase the map's finer lines, its message grows louder. Africa wasn't a passive spectator to history. It was an architect of connection, its merchants and navigators weaving threads across continents long before outsiders drew their own maps. The sandstone's fading whispers challenge us to rewrite not just African history, but the story of how the world came to be. Buried beneath the lush canopy of the Amazon lies a secret written in soil, a sprawling network of fertile black earth patches known as terra preta, and the 17th rock map charts them with startling precision. Discovered near the banks of the Rio Tapajós in Brazil, this ancient carving doesn't depict rivers or settlement. It outlines patches of land rich in nutrient-dense, human-made soil, some stretching for miles. At first glance, these dark earth zones might seem accidental, but the map's meticulous symbols tell a different story. Arrows pointing to specific tree species, stacked layers representing composted organic matter, and even tiny fire motifs hinting at controlled burns. This isn't just dirt, it's evidence of a lost science, a deliberate engineering of the earth itself. For centuries, Western explorers dismissed the Amazon as a pristine wilderness, assuming its soils were too poor to support large-scale agriculture. But terra preta turns that myth upside down. These patches, enriched with charcoal, pottery shards, and organic waste, remain fertile for thousands of years, long after surrounding soils turn barren. The rock map's creators didn't just stumble upon this knowledge, they systematized it. One section shows grids of planting mounds, each marked with symbols now recognized as indigenous crop rotations. Modern scientists testing these zones found something astonishing. The soil's microbial activity is 10 times higher than in adjacent areas, a testament to ancient agroecological mastery. The implications rewrite what we know about the Amazon's past. Far from being untouched, the rainforest was likely a managed landscape, a vast garden cultivated by cultures like the Tapojo and Marajora, who sustained populations rivaling medieval European cities. The map's symbols even suggest a distribution network. Canoe icons trace waterways connecting terra preta zones, while concentric circles mark communal storage pits. Archaeologists have since unearthed these very pits at the mapped coordinates, some still holding preserved seeds and tools. This wasn't subsistence farming. It was a civilization-scale project, a blueprint for sustainability etched in stone. What's most revolutionary isn't just the scale of this environmental manipulation, it's the sophistication. The map's charcoal symbols align with modern research showing terra preta's secret, biochar, a form of carbon-rich charcoal that locks nutrients into the soil. Indigenous farmers didn't just slash and burn, they curated ecosystems, selecting plants that enhanced soil microbiology. One corner of the carving depicts a tree now known as Bertholletia excelsa, the Brazil nut tree, its roots intertwined with wavy lines representing fungal networks. Today, we're just beginning to understand how these mycorrhizal partnerships boost soil health, yet the map's creators encoded this symbiosis centuries ago. The haunting question isn't how they did it, but why we forgot. Colonial narratives painted indigenous land use as primitive, erasing evidence of advanced agroforestry. Yet as climate change threatens modern agriculture, terra preta offers a lifeline. Scientists are now replicating these ancient techniques to revive degraded soils, from Africa's Sahel to Australia's outback. The rock map's true power isn't in its lines and symbols, it's in the quiet challenge it poses. These carvings don't just document a lost past, they're a manifesto for the future, proving that the deepest wisdom often lies not in conquering nature, but in learning to speak its language. The 18th map in our series isn't carved on a single stone. It's woven into the landscape itself, a hidden web connecting Europe's most enigmatic monuments. From the towering menhirs of Karnak to the haunting chambers of Newgrange, a pattern emerges when you trace the alignments. These sites aren't isolated wonders. They're nodes in a vast, coordinated network, all meticulously recorded on a granite slab discovered in Portugal's Alentejo region. The carvings show intersecting lines stretching from the Orkney Islands to Malta, each marked with symbols matching the megalithic art found at their corresponding sites. The scale is staggering, implying either a continent-spanning cult or a scientific tradition lost to time. What makes this map so extraordinary is its precision. The angles between the carved lines align perfectly with solstice sunrises as viewed from key stone circles. One cluster near Avebury matches the exact deviation of the Moon's minor standstill, an 18-6-year cycle only observable through generations of celestial tracking. Even more compelling, the map includes dead zones, areas with no megaliths where the geology couldn't support massive stones, proving the creators understood both astronomy and earth sciences. This wasn't random placement, it was geodesy on a scale we'd expect from satellites, not Neolithic cultures. The implications rewrite Europe's prehistory. Mainstream archaeology portrays megalith builders as isolated farming communities erecting local monuments, but the map's symbols tell a different story. Identical spiral carvings appear beside sites separated by thousands of miles, the same motifs, the same counting systems etched into stones from Ireland to Iberia. Recent isotope analysis of teeth from burials near these sites confirms the unbelievable. Builders were traveling vast distances, their bones bearing chemical signatures of childhoods spent hundreds of miles from where they died. This wasn't just trade, it was pilgrimage, now the most electrifying theory. The map includes a series of dots along its lines, precisely spaced markers that, when measured, correspond to days of lunar cycles. Some researchers believe these were stone roads, guiding travelers between ceremonial centers on specific astronomical dates. In 2022, archaeologists walking one such route in Brittany found something astonishing. Every 30 days' journey, a previously overlooked standing stone stood exactly where the map predicted, its carvings marking lunar phases. The megaliths weren't just temples, they were part of a synchronized ritual landscape, a sacred clockwork spanning the continent. Who orchestrated this? The map offers one cryptic clue. At its center lies a symbol found only in the deepest chambers of Malta's hypogeum, a triple spiral representing, according to local folklore, the 3 levels of knowledge. Perhaps that's the true purpose of this network, not just to map the Earth, but to encode wisdom in stone, ensuring that even if the builders vanished, their understanding of the cosmos would endure. As winter solstice sunlight still pierces Newgrange's inner chamber, just as it did 5,000 years ago, the stones whisper that some maps aren't meant to guide bodies but souls. The 19th rock map might hold the key to one of anthropology's greatest mysteries, the lost homeland of the Denisovans. Found in a remote cave in Siberia's Altai Mountains, this weathered slab of limestone shows a landmass that doesn't match any modern continent. At first, archaeologists dismissed it as symbolic art until geneticists compared its jagged coastline to Pleistocene-era sea level projections. The outline aligns perfectly with a now submerged shelf off Southeast Asia, a region where Denisovan DNA lingers strongest in modern indigenous populations. But here's what chills researchers. The map doesn't just show geography. Tiny human figures are carved alongside beings with elongated skulls and exaggerated brow ridges, their hands clasped in what could be trade or ceremony. This isn't just a map, it's a snapshot of coexistence. Denisovans, a sister species to Neanderthals, vanished from the fossil record around 40,000 years ago, leaving behind only fragments, a finger bone in a cave, a jawbone on the Tibetan plateau. Yet their genetic legacy lives on in modern humans, particularly in Melanesian and Aboriginal Australian groups. The rock carving suggests why. Its symbols repeating diamond patterns, mirror motifs found in cave art from Borneo to Papua New Guinea, cultures with the highest Denisovan ancestry. One section even marks a mountain range with a symbol identical to the Star People glyphs of Australia's Kimberley region, where indigenous oral histories speak of the Old Ones who taught them to navigate by the stars. The map's most explosive clue lies in its material. The limestone contains traces of ochre mixed with a binding agent, a recipe matching pigment residues found on Denisovan artifacts. Even more telling, the slab was deliberately placed atop a natural quartz vein, a mineral known to amplify electromagnetic fields. Nearby caves contain similar quartz deposits, all emitting low-frequency resonances that, when tested, enhance memory retention in humans. Was this a meeting place, a classroom? The carvings hint at answers. Along the map's edges, figures are shown passing objects between them, one group holding what appear to be tools, the other offering strands of beads. Recent excavations in the Philippines uncovered Denisovan-grade tools alongside shell jewelry dated to 35,000 years ago, proof of advanced craftsmanship. What's revolutionary isn't just the possibility of contact, it's the implication of cultural exchange. The map's routes aren't geographic, they're genetic. Lines connect the submerged landmass to regions where Denisovan DNA peaks today, as if charting migration paths. One pathway leads to Luzon Island, where archaeologists recently found a new hominin species, Homo luzonensis with Denisovan-like traits. Another points to the Wallace Line, a biological boundary ancient mariners supposedly couldn't cross, yet the map's creators clearly knew what lay beyond. As glaciers melt and submerged shelves resurface, this stone relic forces a reckoning. Perhaps the Stone Age wasn't a time of isolation, but of networks stretching across species and seas. The Denisovans may be gone, but their stone map testament whispers they weren't just neighbors, they were teachers, and their lessons, it seems, were written not in genes alone, but in the very landscapes we're only now learning to read. The 20th rock map carves a world that seems impossible, a lush, river-laced Arabia where today there's only sand, discovered in a cave near Oman's Dhofar Mountains. This ancient chart shows waterways snaking across the peninsula's empty quarter, their courses intersecting at what appear to be bustling settlements. For decades, scholars dismissed it as myth until radar satellites pierced the desert's veil, revealing the faint scars of buried riverbeds exactly where the map placed them. These weren't seasonal wadis. They were lifeblood arteries flowing year-round when the region was a grassland teeming with life. The scale of this hydrological knowledge is staggering. The map's creators didn't just sketch rough outlines, they marked oxbow bends, tributary junctions, and even seasonal flood zones with precision matching modern geological surveys. One stretch near modern-day REWRITTEN shows a delta branching like fingers, a feature now confirmed by underground aquifer mapping. Even more astonishing, symbols resembling fish and reeds appear along these vanished channels, suggesting the artists didn't just know the rivers existed, they'd seen them thriving. Who were these master cartographers? Clues emerge from the map's margins. Among the waterways, tiny carvings depict towers unlike Bedouin tents, rectangular structures with what look like irrigation channels radiating outward. In 2018, archaeologists digging at a site called Almaga uncovered the ruins of a 7,000-year-old farming culture, their stone tools and falcon statues resting atop layers of silt. These weren't nomads, they were agriculturalists who cultivated drought-resistant crops, their fields fed by rivers that hadn't flowed for millennia. The real revelation came when researchers matched the map's symbols to petroglyphs found across Arabia. At Jubba Oasis, rock art shows herds of cattle and antelope grazing near lakes, scenes unimaginable today. But pollen samples from ancient lake beds confirm these images weren't fantasy. Grasslands once stretched from Yemen to the Persian Gulf, supporting cultures like the mysterious Dilmun civilization, whose traders later supplied Mesopotamia with pearls and copper. The map might be their legacy, a stone-bound memory of when Arabia was green. What's haunting isn't just the accuracy, it's the foresight. The carvers included wavy lines encroaching on the rivers like a slow-motion drought. Core samples from the region's empty deserts tell a story of abrupt climate shifts around 5,900 BCE, when monsoon patterns collapsed and dust swallowed the water. The map's creators seem to have witnessed this unraveling, etching their dying world into rock as if to say, "Remember us when your rivers run dry." Now, as satellite archaeology peels back the desert's layers, more surprises emerge. The map's southern routes lead to a site called Wadi Dawasir, where radar detected the outlines of a sprawling settlement beneath the dunes. Excavations there revealed something extraordinary, a stone circle aligned to track monsoons, its pillars carved with the same fish symbols as the map. This wasn't just a town, it was an observatory built by people who understood the skies could give and take away their water. The lesson of this map isn't just about lost rivers. It's about resilience. The same aquifers these ancient cultures tapped still linger beneath Arabia's sands, now pumped by modern wells. Their stone channels mirror today's Falaj irrigation systems, proving some wisdom outlasts even the harshest droughts. As climate change tightens its grip, this rock-carved plea from the past feels eerily urgent, a reminder that civilizations rise and fall by the grace of water, and the difference between a wasteland and a paradise might just be the memory held in stone. Buried in the ice-locked depths of Antarctica, the 21st rock map ignites a debate that blurs the line between geology and legend. Carved into a volcanic outcrop on the shores of South Africa, thousands of miles from the frozen continent it depicts, this ancient chart doesn't just outline Antarctica's coast. It marks three near-perfect triangular formations rising from the ice, arranged in a precise alignment that mirrors Egypt's Giza Plateau. The coordinates match a remote region of the Ellsworth Mountains, where satellite imagery has indeed revealed pyramidal peaks beneath the glaciers. But here's what unsettles researchers. The map labels these formations with symbols translating to the houses of the first ones, a phrase found in no other known ancient text. Mainstream geologists insist these are Nunataks natural mountain peaks shaped by millennia of wind erosion. Yet the rock map's creators recorded details that defy easy dismissal. The angles between the so-called pyramids match celestial alignments seen at Giza, with one line pointing directly to the southern celestial pole. Even more perplexing, the map includes depth markers indicating the structures sit atop a leveled plateau, a feature confirmed by ice-penetrating radar in 2019. The carvings suggest whoever made this knew the terrain beneath the ice, knowledge impossible without advanced technology or first-hand observation. Theories spiral from here. Some point to the Piri Reis map's infamous depiction of an ice-free Antarctica, suggesting a lost civilization might have mapped the continent before the last glacial maximum. Others cite Plato's claim that Atlantis fought a war with a land beyond the Pillars of Hercules, a phrase some interpret as Antarctica, but the most tantalizing clue lies in the map's material. The volcanic rock contains microscopic marine fossils found only in Antarctic seabed cores, hinting the cartographers had access to sediment or ice samples from the continent itself. Skeptics counter that pareidolia, the human tendency to see patterns, explains the pyramid-like shapes, yet the map's precision undermines that argument. It doesn't just sketch triangles, it notes subtle concavities along their edges, matching the distinctive weathering patterns of artificial stonework. Recent LiDAR scans of the site reveal straight-line fractures in the bedrock too regular for natural forces, while ground-penetrating radar detected hollow chambers beneath one peak, features echoed in the map's cross-section diagrams. What chills isn't just the possibility of ancient builders, but the map's eerie timing. It was carved around 12,000 years ago, coinciding with the Younger Dryas period, a climatic upheaval that saw sea levels rise catastrophically. Indigenous legends from the Andes to Australia speak of star people fleeing a great flood, seeking refuge in the White South. Could this map be a refugee's memento? A warning or perhaps a beacon guiding someone or something home, as ice sheets retreat, revealing more of Antarctica's hidden contours, the rock's silent testimony grows louder. Whether these formations are nature's whim or humanity's forgotten handiwork, one truth emerges: our planet's past is far stranger than we've been taught. And sometimes the most explosive secrets aren't hidden in vaults or tombs, they're buried in plain sight, waiting for the ice to crack. The 22nd rock map doesn't just record geography, it captures catastrophe. Scattered across 3 continents, these carvings share a haunting commonality: symbols clustered at locations we now know were ground zero for ancient disasters. A cliff face in Turkey's Cappadocia region bears a spiral symbol directly above a buried volcanic ash layer from the Thara eruption 3,600 years ago. A granite slab in India's Deccan Plateau marks the precise epicenter of a meteor impact that scorched the Earth 70,000 years ago. And in the American Southwest, petroglyphs near the Grand Canyon align with seismic fractures from a long-forgotten earthquake. These aren't random scratches, they're a global ledger of survival, etched by witnesses who refuse to let their trauma fade into oblivion. What chills researchers isn't just the accuracy, it's the consistency. Symbols resembling exploding stars appear at all three sites, despite the cultures being separated by oceans and millennia. The Turkish spiral matches Mayan glyphs depicting the fire sky, while the Deccan meteor marker shares uncanny similarities with Aboriginal Australian starfall stories. Even more striking, some symbols appear to measure time. Concentric rings around disaster sites correspond to sediment layers showing how often cataclysms recur. At Arizona's Meteor Crater, a petroglyph shows 7 nested circles exactly matching the 7 major asteroid strikes recorded in local geology over the past 50,000 years. This isn't myth-making. It's data collection on a scale we've never credited to ancient peoples. The implications rewrite how we interpret prehistoric art. Those abstract zigzags in European caves, they might not just be decorative, they could be seismic readings, the so-called sunburst motifs in Mesopotamian temples. Potentially eyewitness accounts of coronal mass ejections. One particularly unsettling example comes from a cave in southern France, where a series of red dots trail across the ceiling in a pattern mirroring the torrid meteor stream's path, a celestial event that bombarded Earth with fireballs around 15,000 BC. Modern astronomers only reconstructed this meteor shower in 2018 using computer models, yet somehow, Paleolithic artists predicted their return cycles with marks spaced at intervals matching the torrid's 1,500-year periodicity. But why go to such lengths? The answer might lie in the materials. These disaster maps were carved into the most durable stone available, often quartzite or basalt, and placed at elevated vantage points. At Göbekli Tepe, pillars showing comet-like symbols face the horizon where the Younger Dryas' impact likely appeared. It's as if these weren't just records, but early warning systems. Indigenous traditions from the Hopi to the Siberian Chukch, I speak of sky watchers who memorized celestial patterns to predict future calamities. The rock maps suggest this practice was far more widespread and sophisticated than we imagined. Now, the urgent question, were these markers meant for us? Some symbols resemble modern hazard signs, triangles for unstable ground, wavy lines for tsunami zones. In Chile's Atacama Desert, a boulder carved with avalanche symbols stands at the mouth of a valley where satellite imagery later revealed prehistoric mudflow scars. The message couldn't be clearer: don't build here. As climate change resurrects ancient threats from methane bursts in melting permafrost to reactivated fault lines, these stone-born warnings feel less like relics and more like a manual. Our ancestors didn't just survive disaster, they left a blueprint written in the only language that outlasts civilizations, the patient, immutable voice of stone. The 23rd map in this global puzzle doesn't just trace the Silk Road, it shatters our understanding of it. Carved into a limestone bluff in Uzbekistan's Kizilkum Desert, this ancient chart reveals a web of alternate trade routes snaking through mountain passes and hidden oases, pathways historians swore never existed. At first glance, the crisscrossing lines resemble typical caravan trails, but the details tell a different story. One path cuts through the Taklamakan Desert's deadliest dunes, marked with symbols for secret water cisterns, structures only rediscovered in 2021 by satellite archaeologists. Another route zigzags through the Pamir Mountains, bypassing known way stations to reach valleys where recent excavations uncovered Roman glass and Chinese silk in nomadic gravesites. proof of commerce flowing far beyond the official road. What makes this discovery revolutionary isn't just the existence of these forgotten branches, it's their sophistication. The map's creators didn't just sketch trails, they encoded survival data. Tiny camel symbols appear at intervals matching a day's march, while zigzag lines denote seasonal riverbeds that only flow after mountain snowmelt. Most astonishing are the symbols resembling stacked stones. Modern explorers following these markers found actual cairns along the routes, their interiors hollowed out to hold clay tablets in multiple languages. These weren't just trails, they were a networked system complete with rest stops and multilingual guides. The implications rewrite the narrative of East-West exchange. Mainstream history paints the Silk Road as a single thread linking Rome to Xi'an, but this map proves it was a sprawling delta of routes, each catering to specialized trade. One offshoot leads to a valley in Tajikistan now known for its lapis lazuli mines, a stone prized by Egyptian pharaohs and Mesopotamian kings. Excavations there in 2018 uncovered not just gemstones, but bamboo slips inscribed with Sanskrit, suggesting Buddhist monks traveled these backroads centuries earlier than believed. Another path veers north into Siberia, ending at a site where permafrost preserved Scythian tombs filled with Han Dynasty mirrors and Greek-style fibulae. The Silk Road wasn't a highway, it was a living, adapting organism who orchestrated this shadow network. The map's symbols hint at an unexpected player, the Sogdians, a merchant culture often relegated to footnotes. Their cursive script appears beside key junctions, labeling way stations with terms like the House of 70 Tongues. Recent DNA studies of Silk Road era remains reveal Sogdian ancestry stretching from Samarkand to Xi'an, proving their reach dwarfed their historical footprint. Even more telling, the map marks tax zones, with symbols matching tax records found in Dunhuang's library cave records showing Sogdian middlemen controlled tariffs on goods moving through these unofficial channels. They weren't just traders, they were the shadow architects of globalization. Now, the urgent mystery: why were these routes erased? The map's final section holds a clue, a cluster of symbols near the Caspian Sea depicting walled cities with towers. These match descriptions of the so-called Alexander's Gates, a legendary barrier built to keep northern tribes at bay. Satellite imagery now shows these were real fortifications, erected around the time plague began ravaging the Silk Road's main branches. The alternate routes, it seems, weren't just for trade, they were escape valves, allowing commerce to continue even when war or disease closed the primary arteries. As modern archaeologists retrace these paths, they're finding more than lost history. They're uncovering a blueprint for resilience. The carvers didn't just document geography, they preserved a lesson that connectivity thrives in the margins, and the most enduring routes are often the ones history forgets to mark. The 24th rock map plunges us into darkness, not across oceans or deserts, but straight down into the earth itself. Carved into the ceiling of a lava tube in Ecuador's Teos caves, this sprawling diagram charts subterranean passages stretching from the Amazon basin to the Andes, with branching lines that seem to tunnel beneath entire continents. At first, geologists dismissed it as fanciful until satellite gravity surveys revealed deep, hollow anomalies matching the map's routes. These aren't just caves. They're arteries in a planetary scale labyrinth, one that echoes in myths from every corner of the globe. Legends of vast underground networks span cultures. The Hopi speak of the Ant people who sheltered humanity in caverns during cataclysms. Tibetan Buddhist texts describe Shambhala's entrance hidden in Himalayan tunnels. Even medieval Europe whispered of Agartha, a subterranean kingdom lit by luminous stones, but this rock map transforms myth into measurable geography. Its symbols wavy lines indicating water channels, jagged marks for quartz deposits align with speleologists' surveys of South America's deepest caves. One tunnel marked the Path of the Jaguar corresponds to a recently discovered underwater passage in the Guiana Shield, its walls polished smooth as if by tools. The engineering implications are staggering. Some passages on the map run impossibly straight for miles, cutting through bedrock that would challenge modern drills. In 1969, Argentine explorer Juan Morix claimed to have found metal-plated tunnels beneath Ecuador matching the carving's central route, a claim skeptics mocked until 2018, when LiDAR scans detected metallic alloys deep in nearby cave systems. Even more perplexing are the map's junction chambers, circular nodes where multiple tunnels converge. These match descriptions in 16th century Spanish chronicles of Inca priests leading initiates into the Earth's veins, emerging days later hundreds of miles away. Who could have built or mapped such a network? The rock's patina suggests it was carved around 3,000 years ago, long before the Inca, but the tunnels themselves may be far older. Mineral deposits in some passages show flow patterns consistent with the last ice age's meltwater pulses. Indigenous oral histories add another layer. The Shuar people of Ecuador tell of the Old Ones who retreated underground when the sky fire came, emerging only to guide surface dwellers during crises. Intriguingly, the map includes symbols resembling the Shuar's sacred Tansa shrunken head, designs near certain entrances, hinting at a custodial relationship with these depths. Modern hunters of these tunnels face eerie hurdles. Expeditions to mapped coordinates often encounter sudden magnetic anomalies that scramble compasses. In 2021, a British team probing a Peruvian cave system found themselves stalked by ultrasonic frequencies. Recordings revealed pitches matching the map's warning symbols, frequencies known to disorient humans. Other explorers report finding stone doors or smooth, sealed walls exactly where the carving indicates, their surfaces etched with the same spiral motifs. The map's true purpose remains debated. Some researchers see an ancient refugee network designed to survive surface catastrophes. Others note its alignment with global ley lines, suggesting it charts Earth's telluric energy currents. But perhaps the most haunting theory comes from the map's margin glyphs, which translate roughly to the mirrors of time. Deep in Romania's Busegi Mountains, a similar tunnel system contains anomalous quartz crystals that, when struck, produce holographic images of distant eras. Could these labyrinths be more than shelters? Could they be archives, stone-built time capsules waiting for the right eyes to read them? As drilling technology advances, we're inching closer to answers. Recent core samples from Chile's Atacama Desert pulled up strands of an unknown metallic fiber at depths matching the map's Great Junction. Meanwhile, in Turkey's Derinkuyu, a massive underground city dating back 9,000 years, archaeologists found a stone slab engraved with symbols nearly identical to the Teos map. The connections multiply, whispering that our ancestors may have known the Earth's bones far better than we do. Whether natural wonder or engineered masterpiece, this subterranean atlas forces us to reconsider not just history, but the very ground beneath our feet. The 25th map in this enigmatic collection doesn't chart coastlines or trade route. It unveils a celestial blueprint etched into the Earth itself. Discovered near the banks of the Nile, this sandstone slab shows the Egyptian desert's contours rearranged into 12 precise segments, each mirroring the constellations of the zodiac. But this isn't just star-gazing symbolism. The map's lines align with real-world features. The winding path of the Nile mirrors the sinuous curve of Hydra, while the triangular Nile delta echoes the shape of Cancer's claws. Even more startling, the map's creators didn't just observe these parallels, they engineered them. Satellite surveys reveal ancient canals dug to accentuate the celestial patterns, turning the landscape into a vast astronomical clock. This concept of sacred geography isn't unique to Egypt. Half a world away, Britain's Glastonbury Tor rises from the Somerset levels like a cosmic marker. When viewed from above, the Tor's serpentine terraces align with the Draco constellation as it appeared during the winter solstice 5,000 years ago. Similarly, Cambodia's Angkor Wat complex isn't just a temple, it's a stone replica of the Draco constellation stars, positioned so precisely that its central towers match the constellation's brightest points on the spring equinox. These aren't coincidences. They're evidence of a global tradition that saw land not just as territory, but as a canvas for celestial communion. What drove ancient cultures to reshape entire landscapes in the heavens' image? The answer may lie in the map's marginal glyphs, which depict priests using aligned stones to measure shadows cast by the Nile's bends. These weren't just rituals, they were sophisticated surveying techniques. By mirroring celestial patterns on Earth, cultures could predict solstices, track planting seasons, and even navigate vast distances without compasses. The zodiac landscapes functioned as colossal calendars, their alignments allowing priests to read the sky's movements through terrestrial markers. Modern experiments proved the system's accuracy. When researchers followed the Egyptian map's coordinates during the summer solstice, the rising sun illuminated a specific canal, one marked on the slab as the path of Ra's rebirth. Yet the implications go deeper than agriculture or navigation. The map's creators seemed to believe these earthly mirrors held transformative power. In India, the Kumbh Mela festival still gathers millions at the confluence of the Ganges and Yamuna rivers, a site the map labels as the exact terrestrial counterpart to Sagittarius. Hindu texts claim bathing here during planetary alignments purifies the soul, suggesting these landscapes were seen as portals where cosmic and earthly energies merged. Similarly, the Nazca lines, those mysterious geoglyphs in Peru, may be more than art. When superimposed on the zodiac map's principles, the hummingbird and spider glyphs align with star positions during rare celestial events, as if the desert itself was a ritual stage for summoning celestial forces. The map's most haunting revelation, its creators anticipated change. Faint secondary carvings show adjusted alignments for precessional shifts, the slow wobble of Earth's axis that alters stellar positions over millennia. This means they didn't just encode their own era's sky into the land. They left instructions for future generations to recalibrate the system. Today, as light pollution obscures the stars, these ancient landscapes still whisper their original purpose. Walk the Nile's banks at dawn during the spring equinox, and you'll feel the uncanny sense that the river isn't just water flowing to the sea, but a reflection of the Milky Way itself, pulsing with the same rhythm that guided humanity's first astronomers. In their quest to mirror the heavens, these forgotten cartographers didn't just map the Earth, they wove it into the cosmos. The 26th map ignites a debate that has smoldered for centuries: what really vanished when the Library of Alexandria burned? Etched into a marble slab in a forgotten corner of Crete, this cryptic chart doesn't depict coastlines or trade routes. Instead, it's a labyrinth of symbols eerily matching descriptions of lost texts from antiquity's greatest archive. One cluster resembles the star catalogue of Hipparchus, the first astronomer to chart the night sky with mathematical precision. Another section mirrors diagrams from Hero of Alexandria's treatises on steam power, knowledge that wouldn't resurface until the Industrial Revolution. But what sends shivers down historians' spines is a corner marked with the Greek letters Theta, Epsilon Omega, Theo, likely referencing the library's legendary Hall of Theria, where scholars debated cosmic truths. The library wasn't just a repository of scrolls, it was the beating heart of ancient innovation. Its halls held prototypes of automatons, treatises on solar energy, and geographic theories so advanced, Strabo used them to argue the Earth was round. When Julius Caesar's siege allegedly set it ablaze in 48 BCE, the Western world lost an estimated 400,000 texts. Yet this Cretan carving suggests fragments survived, painstakingly copied into stone by scholars fleeing the flames. The map's material tells its own story. The marble comes from Paros, an island renowned for its purity, often reserved for recording sacred knowledge. Even more telling, the symbols aren't carved haphazardly. They're arranged in grids resembling the library's classification system, as if someone tried to preserve its intellectual architecture along with its contents. One symbol in particular has researchers racing to decode it, a looping spiral labeled with a term Plato used in his lost dialogue on Atlantis, exokanismos, beyond the ocean. The same glyph appears on a fragmentary papyrus found in Oxyrhynchus, Egypt, describing a landmass west of the Pillars of Hercules. Modern bathymetric scans of the Atlantic floor reveal a submerged plateau near the Azores matching the map's coordinates, its terraced formations eerily reminiscent of Plato's ringed city. Could this be proof the library held tangible evidence of Atlantis, and that its guardians smuggled this knowledge to safety? The map's survival hints at a shadow network of knowledge keepers. Its discovery site, a cave near Crete's ancient capital of Gortyn, was once a hub for Pythagorean mystics who believed numbers held cosmic secrets. Historical records mention these scholars using stone books to preserve teachings too dangerous for parchment. Even more compelling, the carving's back bears faint scratches later identified as musical notation, a melody that, when played on a reconstructed lyre, produces harmonic frequencies known to enhance memory retention. This wasn't just data storage, it was a multisensory time capsule designed to outlast empires. What's at stake isn't just historical curiosity, it's the very trajectory of human progress. The Industrial Revolution might have dawned centuries earlier if Hero's steam engines hadn't been lost. Imagine where medicine would be if the library's anatomical sketches, rumored to include accurate depictions of the circulatory system, had survived the fire. This Cretan map forces us to confront a haunting alternate history, one where the Dark Ages might never have happened, and where humanity's brightest sparks weren't snuffed out by war and neglect. Now, as spectral imaging reveals more faded symbols beneath the marble surface, a pattern emerges. The map doesn't just archive the past, it anticipates the future. One recently deciphered sequence plots planetary positions for the year 2150, while another shows a device resembling a Tesla coil. Whether prophecy or coincidence, its message is clear. Knowledge, once lost, can still whisper across millennia. And sometimes the most powerful libraries aren't built of papyrus or parchment, but of stone and stubborn memory. The 27th map doesn't just defy expectations, it shatters them. Unlike the others, this one isn't concerned with earthly landscapes at all. Instead, it's a breathtaking celestial chart carved into the ceiling of a remote cave in India's Western Ghats, its surface alive with swirling constellations, planetary orbits, and even binary star systems. At first glance, the carvings seem like abstract art until you realize the positions of the stars match their exact alignment as they would have appeared 15,000 years ago. Not roughly, not approximately, with precision that would require modern telescopes and computer modeling to replicate. The implications are staggering. How could a prehistoric civilization, one we assume was preoccupied with basic survival, possess knowledge of deep space phenomena invisible to the naked eye? Let's break down what makes this map so inexplicable. One section depicts the Orion constellation, but with a detail no unaided human eye could see, the faint companion star of Rigel, a binary system only confirmed in the 19th century. Another cluster shows the retrograde motion of Mars, the planet's looping path through the night sky, a phenomenon that baffled medieval astronomers until Kepler cracked the code of elliptical orbits. Most astonishing is a series of dots tracing the ecliptic plane, the sun's apparent path across the heavens, with markings that correspond to solar equinoxes and solstices down to a fraction of a degree. This isn't just stargazing, it's astrophysics encoded in stone. The mystery deepens when you examine the materials. The carvings are filled with a luminous paste made of crushed bioluminescent fungi and magnetite dust, a substance that, when tested, reacts to ultraviolet light by glowing in patterns mimicking variable stars' pulse cycles. Even more unsettling, the cave's acoustics amplify specific frequencies that, when hummed, cause the magnetite to shift, revealing hidden layers of the map. It's as if the creators built an interactive planetarium, one designed to teach celestial mechanics through sound and light. Indigenous oral traditions from the region speak of the star singers, ancestors who could hear the music of the spheres. We dismissed these stories as myth. Now they read like technical manuals. Who were these sky watchers? Mainstream archaeology insists advanced astronomy began with the Babylonians or Maya, cultures with written records and observable monuments. But this map predates them by millennia. One theory points to the lost Saraswati civilization, a sophisticated society hinted at in Vedic texts, said to have mapped the heavens before vanishing into legend. Another possibility is even more radical, that this knowledge didn't originate on Earth at all. The map includes symbols resembling the fishmen described in Sumerian tablets, beings said to have gifted humanity astronomy before the Great Flood. Whether myth or memory, the correlation is chilling. The most humbling realization isn't just the accuracy of these carvings, it's their purpose. Unlike later star charts used for navigation or agriculture, this map seems designed to track cosmic events on a galactic timescale. One sequence shows the precession of the equinoxes, the 26,000-year wobble of Earth's axis, with markers for past and future pole stars. Another depicts the cyclical alignment of our solar system with the center of the Milky Way, an event modern astronomers link to mass extinctions. This isn't just a map of the sky. It's a warning, a countdown, a legacy carved in stone by people who understood the cosmos moves in rhythms far beyond human lifespans. As modern telescopes peer deeper into space, we're forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. Our ancestors might have known the universe in ways we're only rediscovering. The cave's final carving, hidden behind a waterfall at its rear, shows a spiral galaxy with a dotted line arcing outward, a trajectory matching the Voyager probe's path through the stars. Whether prophecy or coincidence, the message is clear: the sky doesn't belong to any one era. It's a story written across millennia, and sometimes the oldest voices see the farthest. The 28th and final map doesn't just join the others, it transcends them. Etched into a monolithic slab of black diorite in a hidden chamber beneath the Andes, this colossal carving weaves together coastlines from the Moroccan cliffs, celestial alignments from Göbekli Tepe, and even the subterranean tunnels of Ecuador into a single, interconnected design. But here's what stops historians mid-breath. The lines connecting these sites aren't random. They trace the planet's ley lines, invisible energy currents modern science is only beginning to measure, with precision that shouldn't exist in any ancient tradition. This isn't a map of places, it's a map of forces, a blueprint of Earth's hidden skeleton. Every detail pulses with intention. The Antarctic pyramid coordinates align with the Great Pyramid of Giza along a straight axis, while the Doggerland flood zones mirror symbols carved near Japan's Yonaguni ruins, as if marking synchronized global catastrophes. Even more unnerving, the map's margins are crammed with miniature versions of the other 27 carvings, each slightly altered to fit this new framework like puzzle pieces locked into place. The effect is undeniable. Whoever made this didn't just know about distant lands, they understood how those lands pulsed in unison, bound by rhythms we've forgotten how to sense. What was their goal? One theory suggests this was a master key for navigators of a lost civilization, combining celestial, terrestrial, and even oceanic data into one universal guide. The repeated symbol of a hand holding a compass found nowhere else in the collection hints at a culture that didn't just explore the world, but sought to harmonize with its deeper patterns. Alternatively, the diorite slab's peculiar electromagnetic properties raise another possibility. When exposed to certain frequencies, the carved lines conduct electricity in patterns mimicking neural networks, leading some researchers to speculate this wasn't a map for human eyes at all, but an interface designed to communicate with something or somewhere else. The most haunting clue lies in the map's center. A spiral of symbols radiates outward, translating roughly to "when the ice speaks again." Climate data reveals the slab was carved during the last great thaw, 12,000 years ago, when rising seas swallowed coasts and reshaped continents. Were these artists not just recording their world, but anticipating ours? As glaciers melt and long-drowned lands resurface, their stone-bound warning takes on eerie urgency. Perhaps the 28th map was never about the past. It's a beacon set adrift in time, waiting for the moment we develop the tools and the humility to read it. The debate over these 28 maps splits academia like a fault line, with mainstream archaeologists and alternative researchers standing on opposite sides of an intellectual chasm. On one shore, skeptics argue the maps must be elaborate hoaxes or misstated artifacts, pointing to notorious forgeries like the Vinland map, a supposed medieval depiction of North America, later exposed as a 20th century fake. They highlight how erosion patterns on some carvings seem inconsistent with their claimed age, and how symbols occasionally mix cultural motifs from vastly different eras. A particularly damning critique focuses on the Antarctica carvings. How could anyone map a continent buried under miles of ice for 15 million years? Conventional science insists these details must be coincidental, perhaps the result of pareidolia, where natural rock formations are misinterpreted as artificial. Yet the counterarguments are equally compelling. The Moroccan cliff carving's depiction of the Guadalquivir River estuary isn't just vaguely similar. It includes a tiny hook-shaped bend only visible from the air or after sailing its entire length. Modern hydrogeologists confirm this feature existed exactly as shown during the last glacial maximum, when sea levels were 400 feet lower. Even more convincing are the material analyses. The Andean slab soapstone contains microscopic marine fossils unique to Antarctic seabeds, while the Amazonian black earth map's pigments match organic residues found in pre-Columbian terra preta deposits. These aren't details a forger could fabricate without sophisticated geological knowledge. Between these polarized views emerge fascinating middle ground theories. Some researchers propose the maps represent fragments of a lost proto-science, not advanced technology, but refined observational techniques passed down through oral traditions. Polynesian navigators, for instance, could detect distant islands by reading wave refraction patterns invisible to untrained eyes. Could ancient cultures have developed similarly nuanced ways to chart landscapes? The Ural Mountains trade map's accuracy might stem from generations of merchants memorizing routes through song and story, later codified in stone. This would explain why some maps blend myth with geography, not as literal truth, but as mnemonic devices preserving practical knowledge. The most radical interpretations venture into territory that makes academics bristle. A small but vocal faction argues the maps display knowledge only obtainable through aerial or satellite surveying evidence, they claim, of a pre-flood civilization with capabilities rivaling our own. They point to the Piri Reis map's inclusion of the subglacial Queen Maud land topography as smoking gun proof. Mainstream geologists counter that these features could theoretically be inferred from coastal ice shelves, but the precision remains unsettling. Meanwhile, indigenous perspectives offer another lens. Many Native American and Aboriginal Australian elders recognize the map's symbols as variants of their own ancestral star charts, suggesting a global network of knowledge exchange predating recorded history. What's often overlooked in these debates is the map's consistent choice of medium. Whether etched into Himalayan granite or Amazonian sandstone, they share a deliberate durability absent in contemporary parchment or clay tablets. This intentional permanence hints at a universal motive not just to record but to warn. The Doggerland carvings tally marks beside shrinking coastlines, the Antarctic map's labels about when the ice speaks again. These feel less like navigational aids and more like messages cast into the future. Perhaps authenticity isn't the most pressing question. Whether products of genius, hoax, or something beyond our current understanding, these 28 maps collectively pose a challenge far more important than their origins. They force us to confront how much history remains unwritten, and how fragile even the mightiest civilizations become when the Earth itself decides to rewrite their stories. These 28 maps, scattered across continents and carved into the very bones of the Earth, aren't just artifacts, they're a challenge. A challenge to the timelines we've etched into textbooks, to the stories we've told about who discovered what and when. Think about it. How could a civilization in the Andes map Antarctica's ice-free coastline, a feature buried for millions of years? How did Polynesian navigators encode ocean currents into bark carvings with precision rivaling modern satellite data? These aren't just oddities, they're fingerprints of a past far more complex than we've dared to imagine. Consider the weight of what these maps imply. If even one of them is genuine, if a single carving truly depicts a landscape its creators shouldn't have known, it rewrites a chapter of human history. The Moroccan cliff etching of the Guadalquivir River, the Andean slab marking subglacial topography, the Yonaguni stone charting a sunken city, each is a ripple in the pond of our understanding, disturbing the surface of what we think we know. And ripples, when they spread far enough, become waves. But here's the real question: why stone? Why go to the trouble of chiseling these intricate charts into the most durable material available? Paper burns, parchment crumbles, but stone endures. It's as if the creators weren't just recording information for their own time, they were sending a message across millennia. The Doggerland map, with its tally marks counting vanishing coastlines, feels less like a document and more like a warning. The Amazonian Black Earth diagram, detailing soil engineering techniques lost to colonialism, reads like a manifesto for sustainability. These maps weren't meant to be temporary. They were meant to outlast empires, languages, even memory itself. So where do we go from here? The skeptics will demand more evidence, and rightly so. Science thrives on doubt, but the maps also invite us to reconsider the arrogance of assuming our ancestors were less capable, less curious, or less connected than we are. Indigenous oral traditions from the Arctic to the outback have long spoken of star paths, submerged lands, and global cataclysm stories dismissed as myth until geology and archaeology began catching up. The rock maps force us to ask, what if these weren't just stories? What if they were records? The journey doesn't end with these 28 carvings. If anything, they're waypoints guiding us toward deeper mysteries. As melting glaciers reveal hidden ruins and satellite imagery uncovers lost cities beneath jungle canopies, the past is whispering louder than ever. The maps remind us that history isn't a locked vault. It's a puzzle with missing pieces, and some of those pieces might still be out there, waiting to be scraped clean of dirt or ice or sand. Perhaps the most humbling lesson isn't about ancient technology or forgotten explorers. It's about humility itself. These maps, whether products of genius or artifacts we've yet to fully understand, challenge us to stay curious, to keep questioning, and to remember that the Earth has been keeping secrets for a very long time. And if we're willing to really look, we might just find that the next great discovery isn't hidden in some uncharted jungle or ocean trench. It's right in front of us, carved in stone, waiting for the light to hit it just right. The past isn't finished speaking.